Welcome back to the channel. This is James Hates Everything, and boy, do we have a big show for you today. I appreciate you joining us. Today, we visited the KC Retro Show. So let's take a look at day one. Before we get into it, take a look at this. All right, all right. Like I said, welcome back, everybody. Go ahead and smash that like button if you appreciate this content. And if you want to see more like this, you know what to do. Hit subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, all that stuff. Uh, First up, I thought tell you a little bit about KC Retro Show. It's been going on for a few years now. And this year it moved into a new location, a little bigger location. And they made the announcement earlier this year that it would be held this weekend. I was pretty excited. I'm always excited when this show comes to town. Um, but even more so than when they announced their first big sponsor, I really got excited. That sponsor was Unico, makers of the SNK MBSX home arcade machine. It's one I've had my eye on for a long time. I know it's been out for quite a while, but I haven't had a chance to get my hands on it. And to me, it looks a little small. It looks like the control deck may be up a little high if you put a riser on it. That seems awkward with that 17-inch monitor. So I was really looking forward to getting my hands on one of these and possibly walking away from one. But, my excitement for Unico being at this convention, uh, grew even bigger a couple weeks ago when at the, amusement park and arcade show, Unico announced the Nova Blast Candy Cab arcade cabinet. For those of you who don't know, candy cabs are a Japanese-inspired arcade that's kind of emerged in the 2000s or really late 90s. It's a sit down. They're popular in fighters. They feature large screens, and the Nova Blast comes with a 26-inch screen with Nova Blast um, marketing or side art. So it is a kind of generic cab, which is the way these candy cabs are. It's all about the design of the cab, not necessarily the game that's on it. It might have a some stickers and some art for the control deck, but for the most part, all the marketing and art around the cab are centered around like company itself that makes the cab and the brand and style of that cab. So I was really interested. It's an all metal cab with that, like I said, the 26-inch screen, and it's a 4x3 screen. So it's a modern screen, which again, Unico makes these. They're called the Phoenix uh, screens. And when they made that announcement, there's only been a few photos circling around of this cabinet. They've some representatives of theirs has shown up on some major streams and talked a little about the features that it it doesn't come with a game inside of it. Instead, it comes with JAMA connections, PC connections, so you can bring your own games to the system. Um, so I was really planning on getting a chance to get some video, get some time with this cab to be able to share it with everybody, even get some interviews from the company. Unfortunately, they didn't show. They were not at. They did not arrive. They had a pretty large space laid out for them, but when I was there, they weren't there. So I don't know if they showed up later. I'm still waiting for some more information on that front. I've put out some requests to see what may have happened. Maybe they'll show up tomorrow. I highly doubt it, but if they do, we'll catch them then. So I thought we'd start maybe by taking a uh, brief walk around the convention floor, and I'll just give you a chance to take a look. There's quite a few dealers that run the gambit from uh, video games, retro games, to modern games, to artists, toy vendors, uh, you name it. The show also featured the Tetris World Championships, which are held today and tomorrow. There will be the Dr. Mario competitions. There was a lot of cosplayers, all the stuff you think you would expect to find at a modern show. So let's just get to it. Let's just kind of take you through a walkabout and see what we see. So first up here, this is kind of as you come in. Uh, actually, I take that back. This is more from the back of the floor in this video. Oh,
Hello, good. How about yourself?
uh, we're not talking. And I do want to take a
I'm
moment to stop right
familiar.
here. I don't know if you recognize this, but this is uh, old school gamers. So here we have uh, a copy of free issue they were handing out at the convention. For those of you who don't know this, you can get a free subscription to the digital version of this magazine. It's one P Dubs on his channel talks about frequently. Every year they do a Kickstarter where you can sign up to get the physical edition of the magazine, and you can see it is top quality, um, full of articles, full color. It's really well produced. So if you're not picking this up, it's highly recommended. It's got a lot of good information in there, especially for the home arcade community and retro game enthusiasts. So uh, let's go back to the video. And of course, here is where they are.
It's
Uh,
you say free issue? I'll take it.
Of course, I'm already familiar with it, but thought I'd primarily for
Nah, I'm good. Thank you.
my next up, just another vendor that had lots of Pokemon cards. I didn't mention that. Lots and lots of vendors selling Pokemon. Um, not too unusual. Here we have a vendor that has an eclectic mix of toys and video games. A couple interesting R2 pieces right off the bat. You can see a Super Scope in there. Um, just a good mix of random stuff. I mean, NES. There's a wave bird, a box nest advantage. Always like to see those. A ton of handhelds. Really saw a lot of handhelds at this show. Um, yeah, I mean, sometimes you see a few, sometimes you see a lot. Um, and we know that those do well for those who flip. And there's a Genesis Tower of Power right there. All the components, and of course, a giant selection of games there. I always like shows like this. You get a chance to meet a lot of people um, from the area, or even those that visited in. I got a chance to meet a couple of the competitors at the start of the show that for the Tetris World Championship. They were practicing, waiting to get their chance to go. They did both travel from out of the area, so they they competed a lot of these events, and so it's glad to have them here in the Kansas City area, and out at the show. As we walk around, of course, you see a lot more vendors. There's some um, toy booths over on the right, and as we look here, this is one of the largest PS Vita selections I've seen at one of these conventions. Pretty large selection of both domestic and Japanese PS Vita games there. So really cool to see. And of course, there's a lot of Wii U uh, right there, and I think they had one of the biggest Switch selections as well. For a console that's still out and released, it's surprisingly at these conventions, Switch games are kind of hard to come by. Um, Thankfully, you tend to see some of the more sought after titles, but if you're looking for some of the mainstream stuff, they are few and far between. This is pretty early in the day on day one when I shot some of this. I'm just really kind of walking around trying to get a first look at everything. Wanted to give you all a chance to see. I, of course, picked up a lot of games for my collection. Um, stuff that I once had and sold. I was found. I got an announcement the other day that finally my 2600 plus is gonna pre-order is gonna ship. So I actually picked up a couple Atari games for cheap. That's the nice thing about most Atari games is they are dirt cheap. Certainly, they have more expensive ones. I saw a Tapper cartridge uh, that was a rarer edition of Tapper. It's like $100. It was pretty interesting. I don't think I had actually seen that one before in person. Of course, here we have a good selection of SNES and a little bit of N64. Wasn't anything that really jumped out. A lot of PS1 this time. I saw quite a bit more PS1 than I've seen in the past. So always good to see. And of course, Pokemon cards. Eh, I'm not going to necessarily take you through every vendor here, but I wanted to give you a snapshot of just some of the quick uh, you know, retro and other things. Of course, I wanted to make sure this vendor here had a good selection of TurboGrafx 16 there. Again, another system you don't usually see too much at, and of course, you're not aware the Analog Duo you have a pre-order on that that ships on December 11th. So those will be coming any day. So I was interested in taking a look at the selections they had there. I used to have a TurboGrafx 16 that I sold off a long time ago. Didn't have too many games for it. I've already gotten most of those that I had back in my collection, but I found a Bonk's Adventure at a really good price that was complete. So I picked that up. Really excited to have that for the Analog Duo when it arrives. But now before we go too much further, I want to take a moment and let's take a look at some of the uh, art artists at the convention. So first up, of course, here we have uh, Legos, a good selection of Legos. And then we have
Good. How about yourself?
a vendor here. Obviously,
Excellent.
they do a lot of laser engraving and cutting, so they had some pretty neat stuff. I am not a Chiefs fan, so I was not interested in Chiefs stuff. There's some, good good artistry here. A lot of craft stuff. This is one of the booth. I took a few minutes to stop here. These guys
Good. How
print
about yourself?
uh, 3D models and then finish them.
Really
And these
cool.
are exceptionally well finished. See here the medallion from Raiders of the Lost Ark, of
Yeah,
course,
you
The Last
finished it
Crusade,
really nice. I wish
Holy
I could
Grail,
finish
some
3D
Star
prints that
Wars
good.
pieces. These, I'm telling you, were
Yeah.
exceptionally well done. They're reasonably priced for the amount of effort that they put into these. So definitely check them out. If you're out there going tomorrow, it's really great. And of course, who doesn't love Teddy Ruxpin? You may not know, but I guess Teddy Ruxpin was actually designed by a DeVry student. I remember that from a uh, DeVry commercial when I was a kid that was always on TV talking about how they developed Teddy Ruxpin. Again, another dealer here, video games, a lot of decent selections of NES. And again, we see here more turbo graphics. So uh, this guy had a good selection here. I think he had Bonk's Revenge. Of course, there's a Turrican. Pretty good stuff. That very interesting stuff. That I may be visiting him again tomorrow. And of course, we walked by Bestman Outpost, and it's Lydia Perez, another artist. And as we come over here, uh, again, more artistry. And I believe we're coming up to Jay Red is a comic artist be over here on the right. Actually, it looks like they're down the aisle a bit. Here was another interesting booth A lot of interesting GameCube games at this one. A lot of good rare PS, PlayStation 2 titles. And always good to see the Simpsons game on PS3. That's actually one of my favorite games on that system. It makes a mockery of all the other games, which that's what you want. And it's a well done game. It's actually really fun to play if you haven't played it. Another vendor with a mix of toys and games. Looks like some Genesis and some import Sega Saturn stuff. And of course, light guns. The funny thing is, there's a gun and knife show going on literally next door to this convention. So on one side you had a gun show, on the other side you had a light gun show. Of course, there's Jay Red's booth over to the right that we just passed, and he was selling copies of some of his comics. And this is another booth here that was pretty interesting. A really good selection of T-shirts, but this is probably the more interesting thing: the USS flag from GI Joe. I This is another toy I had as a kid. This thing is giant. It was about 6 feet long. It was about as long as my bed as a kid. Sat on the floor in my bedroom, taking up most of the space. Pretty awesome aircraft carrier for GI Joe, and of course, it's fully assembled here with an array of vehicles and games. I do not know if Shipwreck was on there. Oh, that's awesome, Jay. I appreciate the heads up. I am super interested in checking that out. Um, Glad you will be going. That's great to hear. Uh, I am super excited now. There's another artist full of 3D prints, which had some pretty cool stuff. He-Man and Skeletor masks. And this front booth here just had as we come around the corner here, has a ton of really interesting toys. They have a giant Pillsbury Dough Man that you can't see above here, but it's a huge statue, really cool. Um, see here. I think let's take a moment to check out some of the um that's like I said, Jay, that's great to hear. I'm super excited. Been looking forward to seeing you guys for ever since I knew you were coming to the show. So I am very fired up now. So here's a selection of pinballs. Of course, we have the Williams or the Adams family. Unfortunately, the ball was stuck, so game was going crazy, but you could not play it. Next to that, we have, of course, a few Stern machines. There's the Deadpool and Avengers. There's a classic Star Wars down there, a little further down. On the other side, they had the James Bond tables and a few other ones. I did get a chance to play Deadpool here for a bit. I have to admit, I have never played it before and did about as well as you would expect somebody who's never played this table before to do. Um, Definitely had my challenges. It seems though like it's pretty easy to understand what was going on. I've gotten to a few battles in the game and was able to get some hits, but because my pinball skills are less than ideal, I lost them each time. I think first I fought Mystique and then Juggernaut. Yeah, Jay, hopefully I get a chance to touch base with you. I'd love to ask folks about the uh, Nova Blast. I know there's been a lot of talk and a lot of excitement around it. I'm certainly very interested in checking it out. I think it looks fantastic. All right, enough of my terrible Deadpool play. Let's We're gonna walk around and take a look at some of the other arcade cabinets here. These were um, brought in by Kingcade, and Arcade Supernova is was also there. Our Supernova Vintage Arcades. I want to make sure I get their name right because they were awesome. But Kingcade did bring in a lot of these arcade cabinets. Some interesting ones that I hadn't seen before. Here's a Gauntlet Legends. The screen was pretty dark on this one, so wasn't really an opportunity to play. Also, MK4, but again, the screen pretty dark. I did get a chance to hop on that real quick and get a couple rounds in, but then chose to move on here. Bring some of that sound up. That's awesome. Uh, Jay says it's something we've worked on over a year and a half to make perfect with lots of options available. And it does, it does show. I mean, it looks great, and you nailed it. It says Legends MK4 and Gauntlet Legends and MK4 need the ULM 26. You couldn't it said that better. Both those screens were super faded, and they would look great on your screen. Okay, so one of the other things I wanted to show and really talk about was I mentioned Supernova. So this was for me, this was kind of the surprise of the show. Obviously, I go to these things expect to buying a ton of retro games, just like everybody else. Maybe pick up some toys. I flip toys and stuff on Amazon, so I'm always looking for Nika and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I didn't really find not much Nika stuff there at all. A lot of the typical stuff you see people collect, Star Wars, GI Joe, that kind of stuff, but didn't see too much Masters of the Universe, which was kind of surprising. Um, but like I said, these Supernova Vintage Arcades, I know they work with Draftcade, which is another arcade bar that's up on the north side of Kansas City, and it's a great location. If you're in town, you get a chance to check them out. We also have Up Down in downtown Kansas City and a few other around town. But Supernova brought something pretty interesting. So let's just jump into that. I want you guys to take a look at that. So first up, this is uh, I don't know what this is. Actually, I wanted to ask the audience here what they thought what these are. I didn't stop to ask. They're pretty interesting. They're obviously some kind of really vintage machine. Next to this, you have original Atari Pong. This was fully working. I did stop and play around, and of course, there was an orbital um, pinball there as well. And then let's get into the supernova stuff. So this is what I was really, really excited to see. These are arcade manuals for all kinds of systems. They also had their these pinball magazine, or sorry, video game magazines, arcade cabinet magazines from the 80s. Up to today, he had a huge collection of those, which has lots of cool flyers and art. Um, but I really was interested in this paper quite a bit. Uh, you don't see these things too often. These kinds of things deteriorate with time, and a lot of these were in great condition. Um, so I did pick up a ton of these, and I'll show not a ton. I picked up a handful. I'll show the ones I grabbed here in just a little bit. But these were really, really interesting, and like I said, a lot of these were in really great condition. They ranged from some of the more newer titles. You see a Blitz there, just off to the left, all the way back to the hardcore early Atari stuff, and they ran the gambit of games. Um, so it was really cool to see those. I started putting stacks of these off to the side because I plan on framing these and hang them up. They're really cool for those who maybe only dabble in the home arcade space and haven't really owned a real arcade machine in the past. These manuals have not over not only operational instructions, but they have wiring diagrams. They show the schematics inside the games, a lot of information. So they're really cool pieces to have. These obviously, as they are degrading, will become harder and harder to find. Um, and so that's part of the reasons why I like picking up paper like this. So this is the other thing they had: real marquees. They were selling these, blowing them out. Some were in not so great condition. Others were fantastic looking. There's a Ghost and Goblins. Of course, there's a Cubert right there on the top. Um, they just really had a great selection. So I'm interested. I may pick up more of these when I go back tomorrow. Yeah, there's a Gorf. Virtua Fighter is coming up. Operation Wolf there, and these camera shots wasn't the best. Admittedly, I was a kid in the candy store and forgot about the camera and was really looking at these things. Uh, so quite a few. Altered Beast, Captain America and the Avengers, Heavy Barrel. I actually used to own a Heavy Barrel in the house. There was Popeye, another Cubert, R-Type, American Football, Patrol, uh, Russian Attack, you know, Bat Mania. A lot of great titles, of course. Joust, love Joust. Yet another Cubert. There's Outrun. And these ranged in price, I think, very reasonable. 40 down to 5 based on condition. So I did pick up several of these as well. So let's before we get too much further into this, why not just do a little show and tell here? So might as well show first up some of the marquees that I got. So first up is Popeye. And as you can see, this thing is in amazing condition. This is original. It does have a few little scratches on it, but uh really nothing heavy. I mean, it's the artwork on here is great. Obviously a Nintendo property. This is uh one of the games that draw a blank on his name now that I'm on the hot seat, but the creator of Donkey Kong and Mario, he first game he wanted to create for Nintendo was actually Popeye. Unfortunately, they didn't have the license, so he actually modeled Donkey Kong off of Popeye instead of Pluto. He created the monkey Kong instead of Popeye. Obviously, it was Mario or Jumpman, as he ended up being officially called. And then instead of um, kind of the ship atmosphere, they created the girders and the building to play on the Kong aspect, and came up with the damsel at the top, and and the rest is history. I mean, he created one of the most iconic games in history, and here is sequel to that game. This is Donkey Kong Jr. Of course, there's Jumpman right there. Uh, this is another one. I mean, the colors on this are perfect. There is a little bit of scratches right here on the marquee, but you can't see those very well. You really have to get up close and hit the light the right way in order to see those. So, super excited to have that one. Of course, I showed this one in the video. This has always been one of my favorite NES games. I don't think I ever actually played it in the arcade. Of course, if you are a big New Wave Toys fan, you might have picked one of these up recently, and that is Ghost and Goblins. Again, this marquee is in excellent shape. Um, Colors on it really pop, they're really beautiful. The art on here is fantastic. I did get these to hang up in the home arcade here, so I'm really excited that that one great. And last, but certainly not least in the marquee category, I picked up Street Fighter Challengers. There is a bit of wear right here. See that right here, where you can kind of see through the art is scratched off. There is some little nicks and dings, but for Street Fighter, this one had the best quality. Really looked the best, in my opinion. Again, it this will look good uh, in the arcade as well. So really excited to have that. And now I want to show you the manuals I bought. I think these are really cool. So one second. And I will be framing these and hanging these up. Some of these are in still in their bags to keep them protected. And they are really nice condition. So here is let's see if that come in the missile command for the cocktail table. As you can see, that art on there is really it's that vintage 70s styles art. You know, here's an example of the trackball mechanism. Try to get that, you know, how it's all the schematics all laid out. You know, it's got part lists. Um, more more art all through this book. Really cool. Here's the cocktail table itself, all opened up, so you can see that TV, all the mechanisms where power cords going, all that fun stuff. So, you know, each one of these has all that information in it, which is, I think, really, really interesting stuff. And of course, who can't forget this one? And again, most of these I picked up not only because these games are just superb, but the art on these is awesome. I mean, they just really stand out. So there's Lunar Lander, and it's the operation manual from Atari. This one, of course, still has all the warranty information inside. Um, so talking to the guys from Supernova, they talked about how what they like to do with these is get two of them. They keep one inside the cabinet and one at their shop so that they have it when needed. Uh, or images of the cabinet itself. Um, Really cool. Of course, you got all this other fun paper that came with this one. Lots of printouts and other information about the game. Uh, and I won't necessarily flip through all these, but I will, not on camera, that is. All right, next up is another great trackball game, Crystal Castles. It's like Pac-Man on a trackball. Of course, everybody knows this game. If you're in the arcade space, it is on. You are an Arcade One Up fan. It's on most of the Atari, if not all the Atari Legacy cabinets. There's a good shot of the coin door here in the assembly for the coin mechanism. Again, more trackball assembly schematics. Very cool stuff. And then another game that was revolutionary for the success of the arcade industry. Again, another Atari classic, the Asteroids manual. Again, look at the art on this thing. The care that they took for these, considering the time frame, is amazing. Uh, it, whoever owned these manuals obviously took a lot of care with them, but most companies just throw you a white page cover and call it a day. But these really came with, um, you know, these operations manuals that really these companies put a lot of care into. So excited to have that one, and that one, of course, framed up will look amazing. The next one I didn't really get necessarily for the art of it. There's not a lot of art in this one per se. Um, it does have a lot of things in it. What's this? Um, but I think I got it for what it is because it's probably something we're not likely ever to see in the home arcade space. So if you want to own one of these games, you really are probably going to have to buy an original, and that is Nintendo versus System. And of course, here you can see Donkey Kong, Popeye, Donkey Kong Jr., Mario Brothers, and Donkey Kong 3. This is the versus Unisystem kit manual. Um, really cool. It does still have the kind of schematics the other ones do, right? There's the cab. And let's see here. A lot of fun wiring harnesses. Yeah, pretty cool. There's a um, here's a little flyer that talks about the difference between the versus and the dual. So the dual had the two monitors. There's an image of that right there uh, that were side by side, and there's the red tent that everybody has come to know and love from Nintendo. And see, in some cases, you can really get in here and you know, there's the real schematics right there. So if you own one of these, chances are you need one of these manuals if you ever want to repair it, right? So, or find somebody who can. Okay, and next up, um, this one this one came out in 1980. This manual was printed in 1980, and it's for the classic, right? Midway's Pac-Man. There's your traditional Pac-Man cab, the cocktail table, and of course, this looks like one of those cabriolets. Um, there's a nice big image of the Pac-Man cab and all its features. Again, cocktail tables. And this one has a centerfold. It's like more wiring diagrams, all that fun stuff. All right, two more. You may have seen this one in the video. I think this is a great game that is highly underrated. Probably the first four-player co-op game that people probably never saw the end until they were playing it on Nintendo or on the NES, and then later as a ROM. There it is, Gauntlet. Again, look at that great art. Valkyrie needs food. Back is pretty cool too. Looks like, got connected piece. This one does have a little bit of a water stain on it, but not too much. So still looked great. Again, have that Conan style art throughout the pages here. This is the video game that really started the fantasy genre for video games. And then last but not least, another trackball game from Atari, Centipede. Look at that great cover. That art is just awesome. Yeah, so not much more to say at that. Pretty cool. Like I had a great time on day one. Again, super excited to find those arcade manuals and the original marquees, not reproductions, but the original things. And excited to get those on display here in the arcade. And looking forward to going back tomorrow. Tomorrow, I have for myself a few challenges. Of course, now, Jay Basin here has confirmed that uh, that Unico will be in attendance tomorrow. So I can't wait to get a chance to take a look at the Nova Blast Candy Cab. I will definitely get some video with that and of it and try to share that with you all. Um, and if we get a chance to talk to Jay or anybody else from Unico at the convention, I will do that as well. Really excited about that. Stay tuned for a challenge video. I'm challenging myself to pick up every Zelda cartridge at the convention. I did spend some time looking around today to see who had what. And so we'll see what they restock with tomorrow. I have kind of a plan of action to grab those and see if we can't get every single cartridge um, up until the CD era. Yeah, I'm not gonna go after like the DS or 3DS stuff. We're gonna try to get all the NES, Super NES, N64, Game Boy, all that stuff. See if we can get them all in one fell swoop. And hopefully the at least a couple variations, whether that's the classic releases, the secondary releases, etc., of those original cartridges as well. So with that, I will wrap things up. Again, I want to thank you all for joining us. Especially wanted to thank Jay for dropping by and letting us know that Unico will be out at KC Retro for day 2. Super excited about that. If you liked this, go ahead and smash that like button. And if you want to see the next videos for day 2, which will come out as a video, not necessarily a live stream like I did today, let me know by hitting that subscribe button and ring the bell for notification as I stumble over my words. Again, thanks for joining us. Have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next one.